Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Lost in Thought podcast. This is episode 2. This is a podcast where we have interesting conversations with interesting people. And today I want to welcome my friend Eamonn Ennis. Welcome, Eamonn.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Before we start, do I call you Eamonn or do I call you Eamon? Because technically it's Eamon, but everyone calls you Eamon.
So it's a strange because the name is the name. The correct Irish pronunciation is Eamon, but the English pronunciation is Eamon. So if you go to the UK, the people with the Gaelic background will say Eamon, but people with the more pompous conquering the world background will say Aemon. Unfortunately,
Okay.
my parents selected the latter as the pronunciation I grew up with, so it's Aemon at home.
Okay, so I will call you Eamon, which is what I've been calling you all these years anyway.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, no
And
need.
I'm also a pompous world conquering type, so I
Fair
will
enough.
also stick to that.
Yeah.
So welcome, Amon. I will just introduce you a little bit for our audience.
Sure.
So Amon is the brand lead at Pollinate Labs, which is a design lab. He's someone that has 14 years of experience in the advertising, marketing, and branding space, including as a copywriter and copy consultant. He's also a man of culture. So he's a theater buff, a cinema buff, a literature buff, a history buff. I said buff way too many times.
Yeah. And the
Um,
only thing I'm not is buff.
Yeah, you said it, not me. And Amon also has an unusual interest in Roman history more than any other person that I've met. And he's also dabbled in some amateur acting himself, if I'm not mistaken. He's spent some time on the stage.
Amateur
And
which hurts, but okay. But
oh,
yeah,
have you done professional acting?
I have. I've been in a show
Oh, okay.
many,
Sorry.
many,
Tell us more
many
about that.
years ago. It was so I was quite proud of it. It was a show that came out on MTV and then YouTube called Bring On the Night. And if you watch that show now, there's a lot of people that became really famous. I'd auditioned for it. I didn't get one of the main roles, but then they called me back, and I had, I think, two scenes in episode four. Uh, and I was very proud of myself because I got censored on national television multiple times. So it was fabulous. Yeah, but I do. My name is on IMDb. It's just the wrong spelling
Wow.
on that episode. Yeah.
So I guess you can see the quality of my research on the fact that I did not know any of that.
Oh no, that's fine. That's fine. It's totally fine. I didn't even think about that till you said amateur, and that like hurt a little bit because I
Okay.
yeah, fair enough.
Semi-professional
Yeah,
actor. Okay.
one time
One
professional
time.
actor.
So yeah, that's Amon. Anything that I missed about you apart from what I said?
No, I think you covered most of it with the buffs.
Okay. Cool. So I think for the second week in a row, I have discussed a film with my guests. And the second week in a row, I'm pleasantly surprised by the choice because I don't know what I was expecting, but I probably thought you would pick some sort of obscure indie movie or a black and white movie or a silent film or something of that kind. But the movie that you've chosen to talk about is Amar Akbar Anthony, which doesn't add up with the other things I know about you. And I really like this because I think very early on into this podcast, it's already helping me break preconceived notions that I might have had about people. So tell us very briefly about why you picked this movie. I know we'll get into the detail later.
It's a it's a film I remember from my childhood. Uh, I think I saw your episode with Kamakshi, and I not to like take too much from what she had said, but I think in a similar vein, when we used to come down for holidays to India, back in the day there used to be uh, your your cable guy, and there would be that one channel with that cable ka symbol right at the top, and inevitably, like a certain set of films would always be running. And I think every summer vacation I came to India, I ended up watching Amar Akbar Anthony. I never actually saw the film start to finish, I think, for quite a while, till we finally got the DVD at home. But I had seen the film in its entirety in parts, I think, over the course of many, many different summer vacations. And so I really love the film, I think, because. It's one of the first films of this particular kind of masala genre that I remember seeing, and two is I really liked And not in a political way, but I guess I connected with a lot of the characters there because of the weird upbringing that I had, in that I'm also from a very mixed house. And so my summer, it was a very weird representation of my summer vacations, because literally my grandparents were staying, you know, 2 floors apart, and walking downstairs you enter two completely different kind of households, right? Like my mom's house, everybody sat on the floor, everybody ate from the
Hmm.
thal. You had to take your shoes off before you walked in. It was a very Muslim Bori household. And you go upstairs and it suddenly becomes this very Catholic. Everybody sitting around in, their boxers and banyans, and, sitting in cane chairs and having a drink at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So like the weird kind of duality of cultures, not duality in this case, the is it triality or the tricycle, the multiplicity of the
Multiplicity.
let's just go with multiplicity. Let's not find a word for that. I kind of really got behind, I guess, and it's kind of held true through a number of the films that I saw. There's also the fact that my mother is a big Amitabh Bachchan fan, and I became one also.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's a lot of all of these factors that make Amar Akbar Anthony. I think Amar Akbar Anthony will always hold a very special place. I mean, I like a lot of other films of that genre and of that time frame, but this one will always be, I think, the one that I will hold closest to my heart always.
Very interesting. And I think, again, second week in a row or second episode in a row where there's an element of randomness, like you said, you just happen to come across this on cable.
Yeah.
Uh, and similarly, Kamakshi mentioned that, she just saw Die Hard with a Vengeance listed in the newspaper.
Hmm.
And I think a lot of the movies that we tend to latch on to early on in life, for our generation, there's been that element of randomness where you just stumble
Yeah.
upon it like this. And I wonder whether now it's being taken away because everything is very made to order. You choose what you want to watch
Yeah.
on streaming platforms and so on. So I wonder whether people who are discovering movies now will have that same element of chance and randomness that we had.
But I feel the same way about lots of things. It's a longer conversation about content in general. The other thing, like I noticed personally on my own Netflix, and like it's just a simple thing. Like if I go to my profile and I go to my wife's profile, they're completely different shows, and I've gotten so bored of the stuff that's being
Hmm.
recommended to me now. I either go to my wife, or because we're on her Netflix, I go to her parents' Netflix to see if there's something I'm missing.
Yeah.
Because it just doesn't recommend it to me, nor does it come up in a search. I feel like that element of just surprising randomness is gone. Also, patience. Because I don't know if you remember, but all of these films, if you wanted to watch it, it was a 4 hour affair. Because the
Yes.
film itself is about 3 hours. No, not even 4, 5 hour affair. Because the film is about 3 hours, and then you had ads.
Yes. I remember the first time Lagan was shown on
Oh
TV
yeah,
because Lagan is like 3.5 hours or almost 4 hours long.
yeah.
And because it was such a massive hit, the ad breaks were also very, very long. That screening went for like 6 hours or something.
Yeah. But it was, I miss ad breaks, I don't know, like, ad breaks were when you waited to go to the bathroom to get some
Yeah,
more popcorn, to like do anything, take a phone call. Like
yeah,
I remember back in the day, you take a phone call, be like, I'm watching a film, I'll call you back. And then you call in the ad break and then put the phone back down. We sound like really old people. We should
I know.
stop talking like this.
This is just millennial
Angst.
complaints and angst.
Yeah.
But no, it's very interesting what you say about the personal identification with the multiplicity and the religious aspects, religious multiculturalism of the movie. And I think we'll get into that a little bit later as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
But yeah, very cool. So I just tell the listeners slash watchers a little bit about this movie before we
Yeah.
start talking about it.
Good
So this
luck.
is, by the way, this is Amar Akbar Anthony with Eamonn Ennis. That's a hell of an alliteration. I don't think we're going to beat that in future episodes
Yeah. Oh yeah.
in terms of
That's not bad.
alliterative titles.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's a Amar Akbar Anthony. So this is a 1977 movie. It's directed by Manmohan Desai, written by Kader Khan and Prayag Raj. There's a massive star cast in this film. So there's Vinod Khanna, Rishi Kapoor, Amitabh Bachchan, Shabana Azmi, Neetu Singh, Parveen Babi, and then you have Nirupa Roy, Pran, and Jeevan. Pran and Jeevan are kind of synonyms, right? Like, but they're two different people.
Yeah.
um,
Which is interesting in what happens in the film also.
yes, we will get to that. This is the highest grossing Indian movie of 1977. So this was the biggest hit movie of the year in India. And interestingly, last week, the movie that we discussed was Die Hard with a Vengeance, which was the highest grossing movie worldwide in 1995. So two consecutive episodes where we've picked a big box office hit. This is an old school masala film in the original sense of the word. I think now that masala movie has just become a synonym for like a bad movie, but
Yeah.
that's not what it originally meant. I think it's just a confluence of many different genres. There's action, there's comedy, there's songs, and there's just everything in this movie. I will explain the plot of this movie a little bit, and God help me while I do this, because it's very convoluted. I'll just briefly summarize it, and you won't get into all of the details yet, but just to give listeners a sense of what we're talking about. And yeah, we'll be discussing spoilers, but not really a movie that you can spoil for yourself because you kind of know how it's going to end the minute it begins.
Yeah.
Okay, so this movie begins with a driver named Kishan Lal. He's released from jail on 15th August 1955. I actually didn't pick up on the date while watching the movie, but apparently that's when it takes place. He's released from jail on 15th August 1955. He goes home and he finds that his wife Bharati is suffering from TB. I don't know why I laughed but that's just how it worked back in the day in those movies. So you get out of jail and you find that your wife is suffering from TB, and she and her sons, three sons, are in like a bad state because they're financially they have nothing. And this Kishan Lal is like, didn't Robert send you the money all this while? And Bharati says, no, nobody sent me any money. And then Kishan Lal is enraged and he says, Robert, Robert. And then he goes to visit this Robert, and we learn that Robert was his former boss, and Kishan Lal used to be Robert's driver. And there came a time when Robert ran over somebody with his car, and he just made Kishan Lal, the driver, take the blame for it, and he went to jail. I guess people may or may not have been inspired by that in real life in subsequent years. And so this Kishan Lal spends several years in jail with the understanding that Robert is going to send his wife and kids some money. He gets out of jail and he finds that he hasn't done any of that. And, so he's confronting Robert. But Robert is like, he's just saying, who are you? And he pretends to not remember this and he humiliates him. He gets a bunch of goons to beat him up. But Kishan Lal is a driver and he uses his driving skill to like get into this car which has gold in it, smuggled gold, and he drives off with this car. And Robert and his goons are like, oh, we have to chase this guy and recover our gold. Kishan Lal goes home, and in the intervening time, his wife Bharati has left to kill herself, and she's left behind a suicide note of sorts. And it's interesting on a side note that she didn't do that all these years, but the day that this guy comes back from jail, she's like, I can't take it anymore. Uh, I don't know how to read it into that. But okay, so anyway, so he believes that she has left to kill herself, and now he's alone in the world with his three sons. So he bundles the three sons into his car, the car which still has stolen gold. And remember, Robert's goons are in hot pursuit. So this guy is with his three kids in the car, and he realizes that I have to keep the kids safe. So he finds like this Mahatma Gandhi statue, and he puts his three kids and he tells them, you just wait under the statue. I'll be back very soon, because he's going to try and throw the goons off the scent. And while he's driving away, his car crashes, and the goons don't have a chance to verify sort of whether he's dead or not in that car crash because the police arrive. And yeah, this Kishan Lal manages to escape. He's alive. He takes some gold and he goes back to the site of where he left the three kids. But what has happened in the intervening period is that the kids are no longer there. So he finds that it's empty. And what has actually happened, we see this in parallel. All of the kids sort of have different things happen to them. The eldest kid is sort of run down by the car that is chasing Kishan Lal, and he falls to the ground unconscious. And he's later found by a Hindu policeman who sort of says, this is just a kid that's lying on the road. Clearly, it belongs to nobody, so I'm going to adopt him. The middle kid goes to get food for the younger kid because the younger kid is hungry. And the younger kid is just crying and alone at the statue. And a Muslim tailor finds him. He also is like, kid left alone, nobody to take care of him. I will take care of him. He takes that younger kid. Middle kid comes back with the food, but there's no younger brother there now. And he also crying and like he just falls asleep in exhaustion. And he falls asleep on the doorstep of a church. And this Christian priest eventually discovers him, and he also is like, okay, this child is left here and everything. I will raise this child. So eventually, these kids are now adopted by one parent of a different faith each. So, the Hindu policeman, the Muslim tailor, and the Christian priest, and they grow up as Amar, Akbar, Anthony, respectively. And that's the beginning of the movie. And then the film eventually then flashes forward 22 years, and we see Amar Akbar Anthony as adults. Their lives keep intersecting with each other in different ways because they're all still living in the same area. And by the way, their parents are still alive because this dad is alive. He comes back to find that there's no kids, but he still continues with his life. The mother, interestingly, never ended up killing herself because she tripped and hit her head on her way to kill herself, like a tree falls on her and stuff. And she loses her eyesight. She gets hit on the head and loses her eyesight, which I didn't know was a thing that it could happen because it probably can't happen. But that's what happens in this film. And interestingly, the Muslim tailor who adopts Akbar is the one who finds her that very same day, and he takes her home and everything. And this lady's blind now, therefore she can't see Akbar, the newly adopted kid. The kid is still crying and saying things, but she can't apparently recognize her own kid's voice. But whatever. So she's alive. Long story short,
Trauma.
trauma. So 22 years later, this Amar Akbar Anthony are adults, and their parents are still alive, and also Robert, the villain, is still alive. So yeah, then we get to sort of see the lives of all of these people as they intersect, and is obviously heading towards this climax where they potentially discover each other, and it's a question of will they or will they not discover each other's identities, and will justice be served or will it not be served? So that's really the crux of the movie. Did I miss anything major in the plot summary?
No, I think the thing is, rewatching the film yesterday, I realized how much happens before the opening credits. Like, literally,
Yes.
most of that summary was just the beginning of the film, which is a good 20 minutes before the credits start playing. But yeah, but it's a I mean yeah, it's a crazy film. Like to try and explain this plot, I think to try and explain this plot would we would find ourselves in the middle of a sketch.
Yes, and it gets very possibly unnecessarily convoluted at some point, but
Yeah, no,
it is
throughout.
it is complex
Yeah,
throughout. Yeah. But cool. So we will now soon get into the reasons as to why we love this movie in a bit more detail.
sure.
Before we do that, I just want to tell people that if you want to watch this movie, and if you're watching this in India, it's available for streaming on Prime Video. And yeah, so now we're going to hear about 5 reasons why Eamonn loves Amar Akbar Anthony. So, Eamonn, what's reason number one?
Reason number one is this is I if I it's the first memory I ever have of a film. It's the very first memory I have of a film. So, I think this is it's a strange kind of feeling that I have, but I remember sitting in my grandfather's house on the ground floor in Masgon, and they had that old, the old TV sets,
Yeah.
and I remember watching. My name is Anthony. Like that's the memory I remember. My name is Anthony Gonzalez as a song on the TV, and then ended up watching the rest of this film. I think it must have been three, two, three, maybe three. Yeah. And so that's like it genuinely is my very. I don't know why. I have no other memories of that time. It was right before. I remember we were there because my dad had already left for Muscat, and it was like we were like all together, and then we were supposed to leave soon. So I was young, but I still have a very vivid memory of this moment, and that is why it translated into every time I came back because we were living abroad. I didn't really have access to a lot of these films there. But every time I came back, this is the one film I would keep watching again and again and again and again. And so, although yesterday I think I saw it for the first time after maybe 7 years, but there was a time where I have seen this film every single year of my life, if not multiple times. And then we got the DVD in Dubai when DVDs became a thing, and then I watched it multiple times. Then also, I think once we got the DVDs, the first time I ever saw the film, start to finish, in one sitting. Because normally it would be, oh, it's on TV, let me watch it, and sometimes you'd be lucky and you'd catch it at the beginning, sometimes you catch it at the end, and sometimes because it was such a long film, you'd watch the first half and then be like, yeah, okay, now I can't continue watching because Nanima wants to watch her show, so turn the film off. But yeah, and there's something about the film, and it's kind of trickled down into so many of uh, the Indian cinema films that I've enjoyed. Uh, I mean, there's something nice about the way in which those masala films were written. I think they were very. I mean, like if I had to compare to anything, it's like even that Rocky and Rani ka thing, right? It's such a beautiful concept to talk about, but of course, when it comes to Bollywood, they do it with absolutely no kind of layering. It's just like direct confrontation of issues, and I feel like those masala films directly confronted a lot of issues in just one like
Yeah,
long film. Like, I mean, if you think about Amar Akbar Anthony, from just the initial description you've talked about, there was a message on tuberculosis, there was a message on poverty, there was a message. I think there's a line that he says, that Pran says about, the fact that you've laughed at a poor man and stuff like that. Like, and then, of course, there's Mahatma Gandhi, and this is in the first 15 minutes of the film. Like it's not even like it's 15 minutes. There is messages on all of the social issues that are affecting India, not as like subtle conversations. They're just like they slapping you in the face with it. And so, as a child, I think when you see that, it stays with you in a very different way. And I get why they made films like that. Right? There's no need for subtlety and nuance. You should just say what you want to say because the
yeah,
audience gets it. And yeah, so that's the first reason I love it is genuinely that it's my first ever memory of a film. I think my first ever memory of a film in a cinema is Lion King, and my Hindi film in a cinema is Hum Aapke Hai Kaun. Good recommendations, by the way, for other
yeah.
films too.
We have the same first Hindi film in a theater. I also watched Hum Aapke. In fact, it was my first ever film in a theater. Hum Aapke Gone.
No, I got lucky. Mine was Lion King, which is also another traumatic experience in my life. Like I can't watch. I till today, I'm no jokes. This is not a joke. I till today will not watch the Mufasa dying scene because I cried in the cinema when it happened. I refuse to watch it. I literally watch up till uh, Scar leaving Simba on a rock, and then I watch from Simba falling into thorns. I have no interest in watching that middle bit.
Wow. I think the movies that we watch in childhood really do remain with us in a profound way in that sense.
Yeah, yeah, they
But
do. They do.
you also just spoiled Lion King for anyone who hasn't watched it. But okay, I mean, it's Lion King. If you haven't watched it,
If
then
they
you
haven't
still
watched
know
Lion
about it.
King, they shouldn't be alive.
Okay, wow.
Interesting. And
I do
I'm
not.
not the live action one, the proper animated, like,
Yes.
yeah. It's
I
a
just want
classic.
to clarify that I don't endorse that statement. And, I'm happy for people to be alive if you haven't watched Lion King as well. Uh,
This sounds like one of those things that people put before Indian
yeah.
cinema. Any recollection of people living or dead is purely
The
coincidental.
views expressed by the guest are not endorsed by the podcaster.
Fair enough.
But also the second episode in a row that Lion King has come up. So finding a lot of connections because,
No, but I feel like for our generation, that's the. I mean, that was the film. No,
yeah, of
for
course.
when I say our generation, I don't mean generation. I mean literally all of us who were born in '89. It seems logical that that would be a film that we saw. Because we were off an age, to put
Yeah,
it.
yeah. No, I totally agree with you. Do you think that, if you hadn't watched Amar Akbar Anthony in childhood and it didn't have all of this mythic quality to it and there wasn't all of that nostalgic association with it and you watch it for the first time as an adult, would you like this movie?
I don't know. I I don't know how to answer that question. Also because I mean I don't know about you, but I just feel like these films are such a major part of our growing up. Like that entire '70s phase of like the Amitabh and like things like Diwar and stuff.
Yeah,
Dawn. That whole genre of films. I mean, of course, this film takes it to a different level. The masala-ness in this film is, I mean, like Dawn and Diwar and all had great writers, Salim Javed and whatever. Not that this is not well written by Kadir Khan, but um, it's a really interesting question. I don't, like honestly, a really deep part of me wants to say yes. But maybe I'd love it in an ironic way, in a very
Yeah.
hipster like ironic way, and wouldn't have the depth of feeling that I have for it now. But I still feel like the ridiculousness of that film is so beautiful, and also the songs are so great. Like
Yes.
they don't do songs like that in Bollywood anymore. The songs are all fantastic songs. I genuinely think I would watch it. There are a bit too many songs, but I still feel like the songs make the film, and I think I would still like it as an adult. I think it's a film people should watch. I really
Yeah.
do.
I'll give you my take on it because I watched it for the first time now as an adult, and
Have you seen it before?
I had not seen it before.
Okay.
So I like this movie also. I wouldn't say it's not like a five-star movie or something that I would say you have to watch. It's not like a must-see recommendation. And I did like it. And we'll get into all of that also in a bit. But yeah, I mean, I don't have this sort of childhood association with this movie or anything of that sort. So it's not something that has a magical association for me, but I still
Hmm.
enjoyed it. But I think what I'm finding really interesting about this conversation, and also one of the reasons why I wanted to start this podcast, is just because of the subjective association that
Yeah.
movies have and books have. Because, yeah, there's one subset of movies that everybody will agree is great. Like most people will not dispute that, The Godfather is a great movie or
I love
something.
how we both
You know,
thought of that one film. Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Like hardly anyone will watch The Godfather and disagree that it's a great movie. There's also a set of movies that everyone will agree is bad. I'm thinking of a movie that I watched last week, which I don't even want to name because it was that bad.
No,
Okay,
no,
I'll
name
name it.
it.
It's Nadania. Okay, really bad
I,
movie.
bro,
Uh,
I can't believe you saw that film. I literally last week we were in Goa and my wife wanted to watch it, and I heard, like she said, let's watch it together. I saw 10 minutes. I just couldn't. I literally turned away and I was like, you are on your own on this one. I just cannot. I don't know how you got through that film.
yeah. So again, probably most reasonable people would watch a movie like that and agree that it's bad. But I think there's a huge bunch of movies that are in the middle, which is what I'm really interested in, which is really meaningful to some people. Some people think it's great, some people think it's good, some people couldn't care for it, and so on. So I'm really interested in unpacking why certain movies or books or whatever mean more and are enjoyed more by certain people. And yeah, I think conversations like this will help to throw some light on that. So it makes
Yeah.
total sense what you're saying. But I have to say that there's actually some really cool stuff in this movie which I really enjoyed, and I'll tell you some of the moments that I really liked. So one is just a few shots in this movie, like there's that scene of the kid getting hit by the car,
Yeah.
which actually looks pretty realistic. Like I mean, they must have shot that pretty well because it does look like the kid is getting hit by the car, and
Yeah. Yeah.
it's shot from the POV of the car itself. So that's pretty well done. Then during this Parda Hai Parda song, there's a very nice shot where he's holding up a mirror. Rishi Kapoor is
Yeah.
holding up a mirror, and then you can see Neetu Singh in that mirror, and that shot is also framed really well. The car chase sequence is pretty good, I would say, for a 70s Hindi movie. At the very beginning, when
The first one, yeah.
Kishan Lal is getting away from the goons, the car just sort of rolls down a slope and it catches fire as it's rolling down, which is a nice special effect at that point of time.
Yeah.
Um, what I really love is that entire title credits drop sequence because it's very filmy, but I think it's really well done actually. So just to
Yeah.
describe the scene to people who haven't seen it,
Oh Jesus, yeah.
this is now the flash forward when you flash forward for the first time when Amar Akbar Anthony are adults. So Anthony, who's played by Amitabh Bachchan, hears that some woman has been hit by a car outside this church. He runs outside. The woman ends up being. It turns out that the woman is his mother. He obviously doesn't know at this point of time that's his real mother, but he's like, I have to take her to a hospital, so he takes her to a hospital. At the hospital, coincidentally, is Akbar, who's played by Rishi Kapoor, and he happens to be in the hospital because he has a romance going at that point of time with the doctor who's played by Neetu Singh, and she convinces him saying that there's a patient who's just come in, so why don't you donate blood to her? So he goes in to donate blood. Amitabh Bachchan, who has brought her to the hospital, Anthony, is also donating blood. And Vinod Khanna, who plays a policeman called Amar, he hears about this just because he's a policeman and he hears about stuff like this. So he also turns up at the hospital to donate blood. And the camera just sort of pans out from one to the other, and they each say their name as the title drops. So Amar Akbar Anthony, and as they introduce themselves, you see the title, and then the camera zooms out and you see all three of them with their mother, and they're donating blood to the mother that they don't know is their mother. So very filmy, but I actually thought it was pretty cool. I really enjoyed that sequence. I don't know about you.
I the thing with that sequence is it's the one song I don't like in the film because it's so like very like mournful as a song. The other songs are all like classics, but in terms of the sequence, I thought it was like I mean it was such an interesting thing to think that I mean scientifically impossible, but the fact that they all have the same blood group that their mother has and not their father, and so it works out is fantastic. Yeah, no, but it's the perfect beginning to a masala film, no? Like a
Yeah.
classic masala film will have this poignant starting point.
And the most universal blood group of all is love.
Yeah, it
Well,
flows.
it flows.
Yeah,
Yeah, even the sequence somewhere in the middle of the movie, there's a building on fire, and that also is
that's
pretty
a
well done.
fantastically short sequence. The one
Very well
where
shot.
Neetu Singh's father's shop is on. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Correct. So some really good, you know, uh, cinematic moments in this movie, I
yeah,
would say.
yeah.
Also, I like some of the lines. So there's an iconic line where Anthony at one point says, "ऐसा तो आदमी लाइफ में दो ही टाइम भागता है, ओलंपिक का रेस हो या पुलिस का केस हो." Amazing line.
Yeah, yeah,
And also, this is the only time I've ever seen this in a movie. And correct me if you've seen this somewhere else. So at one point of time, two characters are eating. I think it's Anthony and Kishan Lal, who's his dad, and at that point of time, he doesn't know he's his dad.
yeah,
But I don't know whether you noticed, but they're eating sizzlers at
yeah, yeah.
home.
So the thing is, like you, when I watched it yesterday, it was Shraddha's first time ever watching the film. Here's some inconsistencies in that scene. One is how are they having sizzlers at home? But it's in Bandra back in the day, so maybe that was
Yeah,
what people in Bandra did. And the other thing is, why is there chili powder on the table? It's just there. Like I get salt, I get chaat, I get the pepper. Why is there chili? Why is chili powder there? Great use of the chili powder, but why is it there?
it's Chekhov's chili powder.
Uh, I'm gonna use that. I'm gonna use that next time.
Yeah,
So I'll show somebody that film and call it Chekhov's chili powder. But it's such a yeah. But even I think from that perspective, I think even the fight sequences, they were not. I mean, I thought they were pretty good. All of the fight sequences I
yeah,
really enjoyed.
they were
Like
decent. I mean, they were pretty good. Again, for movies in the 70s, Hindi movies in the 70s, I think pretty good
yeah,
fight sequences.
yeah,
Okay, so that's reason number one, is that it's the first movie that you have any memory of. What's
yeah.
reason number two why you like this movie?
Oh, it began my love affair with the man himself, Amitabh Bachchan. I have. I think this is the first film of his I saw. It's also something I think that I got from my mother. She's also. I mean, although she prefers what's his face Rajesh Khanna more, but yeah, I became a big fan of the Angry Young Man, and I think in the course of all of my years growing up, um, I generally don't think there's an Amitabh hit that I have not seen. Like of that period, not after, not
Yeah,
old Amitabh, but I'm saying of that period. There isn't a single film of his that I haven't seen, and again, like it goes back to like as someone who enjoys acting, and like if it's a very different, as awful as it sounds, when I look at other cinema and not this period of Bollywood masala, I'm drawn to the better performances. Um, for example, like I don't like a Clint Eastwood, and I get to the why I'm saying what I'm saying. Like I prefer the reason is people like Clint Eastwood and whatever, like an Amitabh, they're not really great actors, but they have this presence on a screen that captivates. It's not to say that I don't like Clint Eastwood films. I love them. I love all of them. But I'm not watching it for the performance, right? I'm watching it for this guy being who he is. And the beauty of Amitabh is, I think over the years he got better at acting, but
Yeah.
his sheer presence on a screen is literally the memories of my childhood. It is what I remember of growing up with my mother. Like, like she like as much as as much as my father is not as big a Hindi movie fan as my mother is, like his films were like Sholay. My mother introduced me to films like Mr. Natwarlal, Naseeb, Trishul, like some of the lesser known works. She introduced me to, in fact, one of my favorite all time films in terms of just writing is Kabhi Kabhi.
Okay.
And my mother introduced me to that. Again, a beautiful Amitabh film. Again,
Yeah.
again, like a generational love lost, beautiful film. Again, another film I highly recommend to anybody that has not seen Kabhi Kabhi should see Kabhi Kabhi. Chupke Chupke also. I mean, I could keep naming Amitabh films that I love. I could keep going on and on. But I think uh, his sheer persona on like it you can't help but watch him on screen, and he's not a bad actor. He isn't, like, to give the man credit where credit is, he's not a bad actor. But it's just the way he commands that space, and part of it, yes, is his height, etc. But even like, it's just who he is, and I really enjoyed watching him growing up. Like, I think in every film that I've seen of that particular era, I have always wanted to be the Amitabh in each of those films.
Yeah.
Of course, in this one, the Amitabh connection is because I'm also Catholic, so he's Anthony Gonzalez. Which is not to say I don't also kind of um associate myself with Akbar as well. I think the one that is most distant is Amar, for me, in terms of just personal experience, not any other reason. But um, yeah, I don't know. I guess like that kind of association that I had from watching this film first, then made me kind of watch every other film. Like, like most people would want to not be Amitabh in Sholay because he dies, right? I
You're just
want
spoiling all these movies left, right, and center.
spoilers. I shouldn't have done that.
No,
I'm
no,
so
it's cool. I mean, these are all movies that are in the popular
classic.
consciousness.
Yeah, I. It's like if I said certain things about Star Wars, right? If you don't know by now,
Yeah, that's true.
you know,
Um, do you think Amitabh is the greatest Indian actor of all time?
he's the greatest Indian star of all time. I don't
Who
think
would
he's the
be
greatest actor.
who would be the greatest Indian actor of all time?
I think, honestly, I think Vinod Khanna is a better actor than Amitabh in that era. Vinod Khanna was very, very good. Greatest actor of all time in Indian cinema.
It's a very difficult question. You'll
It's
have to
hard
think over
to say.
it. Even I would
Also,
have to think over it.
also generation wise, I don't know, man. Also, see, it comes down to the scripts that they were given.
Yeah.
Like, if I had to judge it, like, there's so many different ways of judging it. Like, I think if it comes down to on the merits of the scripts that they got, I thought Vinod and Amitabh would definitely be up there. Dharmendra would kind of also be in that category. I feel like to be fair, like, I'm not a fan of Rajesh Khanna, not a fan of Dilip. Um, I really enjoyed work by Devanand. I thought Devanand was very, very good, very, very good. Also, by naming men, I think Sharmila Tagore was fantastic as an actor. I thought she, like, even on films like Chupke Chupke, etc., given the time, given the kind of work that was expected of that time, I thought she was fantastic. Um, Rima Lagu also. I mean, just not because she's a great actor, but I think the poor thing got the same role in every film that she ever did. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
I
there's a
think, sorry, go on.
convincingly. Like you buy the fact that she's gone blind because the tree hit her head. You know what I mean? Like she's like if you when you get a script like that, I think being able to, I think good acting comes from not hamming it,
Yeah,
and I think in this film also is a great example of that. I think the beauty of all the actors is nobody was dialing it in. You know what I mean?
yeah. No, I know what you mean. I think if I had to think about a range of factors, if you look at the whole package in terms of acting skill, screen presence, persona, longevity, box office success, I think if you put all of these things together, then I think clearly Amitabh Bachchan is
Yeah.
by far like the greatest, in
There,
Indian cinema history.
there's no competition.
Yeah,
You literally cannot compete. Like Rishi Kapoor lasted all. Unfortunately, rest his soul. I think Rishi Kapoor, as he got older, became a much much better actor than Amitabh also. And to not to say that he wasn't bad, that he was bad earlier. In fact, I can't believe I missed Rishi Kapoor is a good actor.
yeah,
He's a good actor. Uh, but yeah, in terms of just longevity and success, you can't touch the Big B, man. You just can't. He's the like he
yeah.
is Bollywood. He is Bollywood.
I agree with you. I think if you watch his later movies, like post him turning 60, I would say he's a markedly better actor in that era. I think he
Yeah.
sort of became much more skilled, and some of his recent roles in the last 20 years have been most refined in terms of his acting ability. If you watch the earlier films from the 70s and all, I think it's more like the sheer screen presence that's burning through.
Yeah.
And like you said, just he commands your attention. Um, I think when he sort of burst onto the scene with the angry young man persona, it's very similar to, I think, how Marlon Brando captivated people because he was just very different from what everybody else was, and he was
Yeah.
doing something very different from what everybody else was doing.
Yeah.
So just similar to the impact that I think Marlon Brando had in the West
Hmm.
is, what Amitabh Bachchan's 70s persona had, I would say, in India. But I would actually argue that he's better than Marlon Brando because,
Yeah. Yeah.
like he has lasted much longer. I think from the stories, much more professional to work with than what Marlon Brando ended up being. He ended up becoming a nightmare to work with. And he's
Yeah.
just had a much more varied and diverse career, I think, over the years.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, if you're comparing, I mean, I so like, oh, this is a different conversation, but not to get into it. Like, I don't understand. I like Marlon Brando. Again, don't get me wrong. Love Marlon Brando. I don't get the hype though. I genuinely, because from all intents and purposes, he sounds like a nightmare in every respect, as a person and as a professional. I would not
Yeah,
want to work with someone like that. Like,
yeah,
I just wouldn't. So, but Amitabh seems to be professional, whatever. But no, I also it comes down to pride. I think, uh, how do I put this? I think, and I don't know if this makes sense, but I think living not here, which is not to say that I was living far away. I was living in Dubai. It wasn't like a remarkably different cultural milieu in that sense. Um, but I think Amitabh brought the attitude and the arrogance and a sense of pride to just what everything he did, and that became so aspirational as a nation also, because it was just at that point in time we were the angry young men of the world stage also. We would, we were trying to make our place, etc., etc. I think he captured that spirit of us. And I could feel it there, abroad as well, right? Because like it sounds strange and it sounds slightly nationalistic, but there were, when you don't grow up here and you grow up somewhere else, there is a, and if you're lucky enough to have a connection back to your home, there is a beautiful kind of essence in that, in having that sense of pride and having that
yeah,
sense of like willing to stand up for it. And I think that like that's what he kind of captured in all of his characters, right? Because in some way or the other, the system was trying to put him down, and he managed to stand up above it. Like even not just like in this film, he's like a country liquor bar owner. You know what I mean? And so, and he keeps talking like the priest that adopted him keeps talking about how the system is going to get him. The cops will come. This will happen. That will happen. And his
yeah,
whole thing is of like, yeah, but I'll do the right thing. It may be shady in certain ways, but I will always do the right thing. Like that sense of honor, the sense of like, and I think he brought that to a number of different roles that he did. Even when he played like not necessarily heroes, that sense of honor, Sholay comes to mind. You know,
Yeah.
in that respect, like beautifully, it comes to mind. Like I think it captured the idea of who we were trying to be as, and not just as people, but as a nation also. Just unapologetic, brash, in your face, just willing to be who we were. Sometimes
Yeah.
vulnerable, but always solid. I think I think that's what worked out towards that. I don't know. Maybe it's too. Maybe I'm over intellectualizing it. I think a bit much.
No, I think you're onto something there. And yeah, I think long may it continue. By the way, I also watch KBC occasionally because, as you know, I'm into trivia and quizzing and things. And I mean, Amitabh Bachchan is still going strong at 83 as the host of KBC,
Yeah,
and just the level of sharpness and spontaneity and wit and connection that he's able to build with people even now.
yeah,
And just the sheer gravity of his persona and voice, which is still, I would say, really strong or possibly even stronger now. It's really commendable for someone to be in their 80s and still operate at this level. So yeah, hats off to Amitabh Bachchan.
yeah, yeah. Always. Agree.
One, I think since you mentioned Rishi Kapoor briefly, I also just wanted to plus one to that because I think the more I see of Rishi Kapoor, the more I'm impressed with him also because he just seems like an effortless, natural actor. I
Yeah,
don't think he had to like work a lot on his acting, or he just seemed like somebody who sort of turned up and put in a great performance. And I agree, he also became really, really good in the later part of his life. I think if you've seen Kapoor and Sons,
yeah, yeah.
I mean that's one of the best performances I've seen, in recent memory. I would say by an Indian actor. So
Also, shout out to his uncle. We keep forgetting that Shashi Kapoor was a fantastic actor. I mean, like he's one of the few people that could go toe to toe with Amitabh in like Diwar and stuff. I
yeah.
think anytime, even in Kabhi Kabhi, I think Shashi Kapoor, like I mean, it's difficult to steal a scene from Amitabh, but in on sheer acting prowess, I think Shashi Kapoor is one of the greats. Like he's up there.
I think he was my mother's favorite actor, if I remember correctly.
He's also very good looking. Yeah, very good
Yeah.
looking. Yeah, but he was, yeah, and a whole bunch of. In fact, he was in a bunch of Merchant Ivory films as well. So not just in Hindi,
Yes.
but across different languages, he was quite good.
I just want to end this Amitabh Bachchan section with one anecdote which I found while reading up about this movie. I don't know how true it is, but it's a really good anecdote, so I want to like tell it
Sure.
anyway. So apparently, Manmohan Desai, who's the director of this movie and directed many movies of that era, and I think he's done many movies with Amitabh Bachchan himself.
Yeah.
When he first met Amitabh Bachchan, which was in the early 1970s, he was really unimpressed with him apparently, and he felt like he didn't have much potential. And he apparently is rumored to have said, "The only role I will offer him is a chicken roll." So I don't know whether this is true, but it just seems too good to
What is a
not talk
chicken
about.
roll?
Like a chicken roll, like ROLL.
Like to play a chicken?
No man, like chicken roll, like a hot dog, like a roll.
Oh, ROLL. Oh Jesus, I was so confused because there's the oh jeez. Okay, the only role I would offer him is chicken. This hardcore trolling.
Yeah. So I don't know whether it's true, but I'd like to believe that it's true,
Uh, could be. No, but there was a lot of these stories, right? Like apparently he applied for AIR and was told his voice wasn't good enough.
which is unimaginable, but
Which who said that? Like what producer at AIR was like, yeah, no, just no.
yeah, we don't want the most iconic voice of
His
the
ever
century. Yeah.
the voice that
Okay.
was to define India.
Yeah. So what's reason number three why you like this movie?
I think reason number three that I like this film, and like I don't want to belabor this point, because I feel like it's a conversation not for something like this. But I genuinely loved, and I loved about all of these masala films was, uh, the secularity of it. I love the fact that in a small way they kind of represented the ideals uh, of this country in in celebrating the beauty that is our multiplicity, right? Whether it's this film or, like I said, whether it's Naseeb with John Jani Janadhan, Amitabh's character there. Um, all of these films, uh, even films like Sholay, etc., um, they didn't dive. Anytime there was a Muslim, Hindu, Christian, whatever the scenario was. I don't want to say secular country because it makes it such a political statement. I mean, just the idea of not being defined by your background, yet at the same time being proud of it in a weird way. Like in Amar Akbar Anthony, for example, they're all three very clearly from, like, but it's not as though, like, at least the Hindu guy is not always in a temple. The Muslim guy is a Qawwali singer, but I don't think there's even a single scene where you see him praying namaz. The only guy that's really in and around the church is Anthony, and I guess that's because he was an orphan and brought up there, so it makes sense. Um, and also they're in Bandra, so I guess that's the overwhelming culture. Uh, but yeah, no, it goes back to this idea that you don't your your choice of prayer or where you go to gather as a community has no relation to your other relationships, how you're perceived, or just anything. Like I like that it takes all of this as a given. I think that let me
Yeah.
put yeah. I think the fact that it's a given in these films is what I love. It's not a thing. It's not a conversation point. Do you know what I mean? Like at no point in time are they like, oh, let's sit down and discuss the fact that you are Hindu and I am Muslim. They don't talk about it. They just are the things that they are, and it's beautiful. Like and the friendship, like I think, and we get to that maybe in the next point of why I like this one. But like the friendship that
Yeah.
exists between Akbar and Anthony is just like they don't talk about it. It just is a thing that they have, you know. And that's what I loved. I think all of these films have that sense of not really dividing based on these things. I don't like they were just stated as this is what our country looks like. You know what I mean? Like this is just who we are. It's a mix of these kind of people, and that's it. It wasn't it
Yeah.
wasn't a deal. Like it wasn't made a deal of in the film, and that's what I really liked because that's how I felt growing up. Genuinely, that's how I felt growing up. It wasn't a big deal. And I was a weirder combination than most. It just
Yeah.
wasn't a big deal. No, I was because like I grew up in a house where my mother prays namaz. My dad used to take us to church. My mother would come to church also. I have tried to pray namaz with my mother, and I had a bunch of Hindu friends, and like we had a very close family of our how do I put this? My parents had a rough time when they got married. They were kicked out of their houses, etc., etc., etc. Yeah, yeah. And they were lucky enough. I mean, it's such a filmy story, but they were lucky enough that a friend that my dad made at work, their parents kind of adopted my parents after they were both kind of kicked out of their respective houses, and they were Hindu. They were also a weird combination of a Gujarati and an Assamese, but like till today I refer to them as Nana Nani, but they kind of adopted my parents. So like literally had all three religions, or not religions, I don't want to call it religion, all three cultures kind of fed to me growing up. Like I remember my Nana telling me stories of Ram, Lakshman, Krishna, all of it.
Yeah.
It was just, I didn't see it differently than anybody. I don't know. I don't know. Like I just feel like we that is to me that is not a conversation point. I really don't like talking about
Yeah.
it because I feel like it shouldn't be talked about. I feel like it's a stupid conversation to have in general. Yeah, it's the secularness of it, and I think it carried forward through all of these films in the Masala era.
To be honest, that might be the thing I liked the most about this movie. Exactly what you articulated and how you articulated it. And actually, I think this movie is a pretty blatant allegory in that sense, because if you think about it, the fact that the movie begins on 15th August is not a coincidence. I think the fact that the three kids are left under the statue of Gandhi is also not a coincidence. So I think clearly the message that, like you said, the makers are very slapping, blatantly slapping, is that, uh, like working together or like uniting different faiths and different cultures will help us progress as a nation, is I think what they were trying to say. Even the last song, I'm kind of
I
seeing
was
that
going to say the same.
metaphorically, where they say,
It's not metaphorical, Aditya. They're saying अनहोनी को होनी कर दे होनी को अनहोनी. It's literally जब what is the next line? हाँ
yeah,
जब जमा हो तीनों. Amar Akbar Anthony. I mean, it's a very straightforward. It's not hinting. It's just telling you.
it's very straightforward, yeah. And at the same time, like you said, in the movie, this doesn't figure at all. They're just sort of people, and they're friends and they're brothers who don't know they're brothers, but they're friends,
Yeah.
and they're just people, and it's just like a seen as a normal way of life. And yeah, I think this would actually be a great movie to remake, in my opinion, because I think, like you could remove some of the farcical elements of it and the convoluted elements of it and just keep some of this multiculturalism, keep some of the masala, keep
Yeah.
the great music, and I think it would make for a great remake. Also, because I think now we have a more nuanced understanding of all of the different faiths and the fabric of faith in the country. So I think you can make a really great remake of Amar Akbar Anthony that still is retaining the essence of the message of this one, but I don't think anyone's gonna have the courage to do
Yeah.
it.
It's not going to happen.
And
Also, keeping your point of like the fact that we understand the cultures involved, you'd have to have like 7 kids, which again would not be part of the culture. Because then you'd have to have one Sikh, one this, one Parsi, one, you know, to make it truly inclusive.
I think the remake of this would probably just be called Amar, starring Vicky Kaushal.
Oh God, yeah, yeah, yeah. Fair enough, fair enough. Anupam Kher would
Yeah,
play the father
yeah.
for sure.
Moving on then.
Yeah.
What's reason number four?
Uh, what you just mentioned is the farcical nature of the film. I mean, watching it yesterday, I tell you what I loved. I loved the fact that sometimes no two scenes make sense in connection following one after.
Yes,
I love the fact that the writer and not even maybe the writer wrote it, but the director's just like, yeah, I don't have time. We're gonna just jump from here to here. This is just what happened. Like Amar and Akbar's no Anthony and Akbar's friendship seems to be really deep, like beyond having met at a hospital, because like
but
if
why we don't know.
with no context, zero. There's no context, and like they seem to be really great friends because like at Akbar's Qawwali show and all, he's going up on stage and giving garlands and like I'm thinking that's because he doesn't have that same relationship with Amar, who he also met, at the hospital room. And neither do Akbar
Yes,
and Amar have that relationship. So they obviously have a separate storyline. Because like Anthony knows his dad also. Like he's the dad they go to get Julie's not Julie, what's her name? Julie's uh dress made. Like so but how they became friends, no context. You have to just take it on faith. Then even like I don't like Shabana Azmi is so underused in this film, right? Like she is caught trying to fool people that she is, whatever, and then her brother robs them, etc. And then suddenly, 2 songs later, where the two couples that we've seen actually develop as couples over the course of the film, I say develop loosely, are singing about how they're in love with each other. Suddenly, Shabana Azmi singing about how she loves Vinod Khanna. But why? We have seen nothing of them together at all in this film till this moment has arrived. But it just is. It because they've done the film in the way they've done it. It just makes sense. You don't question it. You're just like, हाँ कुछ तो हो गया होगा. Like even the fact that Shabana Azmi and her grandmother just go and live in his house. Who does that? Who's like, oh, this house is on kiraya. Okay, why don't you come stay with me? Who does these things? Even the guys picking up kids, like no complaint, no like, hey, maybe I should take this kid to the police station. No, we'll just look after you. The only one that made sense was Anthony because like he was found with a mother's suicide note. You know what I mean? Like, but Akbar and Amar were just picked up and like, हाँ चलो तुम आज से मेरा बेटा. Like,
Yeah.
no logic. It was
And they're all living, by the way, they're all still living in the same locality. They could
yeah.
have easily just asked around, has anyone lost a kid? Presumably, this, the Kishan Lal and the TB/blind wife, they're still living like 500 meters away.
Yeah.
Nobody checks with them at any point,
But the best part is like going back to the scene you talk about. A, she can't hear her own child. They come to the house. Now, if you remember every scene previously, there is that lady in the sari who is nosy AF that keeps showing up every time and be like, Kishan Lal? Are Bharti to chali gayi. And like she's just always around. In that one scene where the baby's in the car, she comes up afterwards, but did not see the baby in the car to say, hey, maybe pick up your child that you left in that strange man's vehicle. No.
yeah.
That's where the come. She comes to say what happened, and then the police officer comes and says, your husband and children are dead. It's beautiful. It's so stunning. I love how that moment. And also, if you notice the cop in that scene, you know what I loved yesterday when I was watching it, like the farcical nature of it is, it's like he was an extra who was told, you are going to tell her that her children have died. You must look sad. So there's no sadness in his tone. There is sadness in. मैंने तो देखा था आप वो तो रहा ना what is this first like she asks about a kid and he just comes from behind and says वो तो चले गए मैंने अपनी आंखों से देखा उनका गाड़ी का एक्सीडेंट हुआ and this is sad he just looks down he just says it like this what like it makes no sense but it makes sense.
Yeah.
I loved it. I love the fast. Like it is so good. It is so fantastic. I think it is one of the better insane films I've seen.
Can we also talk about the situation with the dad and the villain? Because
Oh my god.
what that
Oh,
that was a completely unnecessary twist to introduce into the story. So just to help people understand what we're talking about. So Kishan Lal, like I mentioned, was the driver of this Robert. And like I mentioned at the beginning of the movie, he gets out of jail and then goes to Robert. Robert humiliates him and says, I'm not giving you money and everything. Then when we flash forward 22 years later, we discover that these people have switched roles,
yeah.
where Kishan Lal has now become the same villain that Robert used to be. And he's for some reason wearing the same costume and like the same cartoonish villain makeup and everything. And just because he's been driven crazy by his misfortune, I guess, and because Robert lost all his gold in that chase scene at the beginning, he's become poor and he's become a poor person. We also find that Kishan Lal has sometime soon after Robert caused him to lose his three kids, Kishan Lal kidnapped
Robert
Robert's daughter, and he just walks in through a French window at night and picks up the
on the
child. That's how he
balcony,
kidnaps him.
on the balcony of a house off Carter Road. You know what house it is also. Like
Yeah.
you
Okay. And then there's this whole convoluted side plot where now he has raised that kidnapped daughter of the boss as his own, I don't know what, and then she's studying abroad and she eventually comes back and she falls in love with Anthony and it's just a mess. But
it's
I don't know what
fantastic.
they were like, why was that in there?
No, but I think it was great because okay, now we should also mention, guys, in terms of the farcical nature of it, there is there are two times a gun is fired in this film. Okay, three times. But two of those occasions are Kishan Lal at the start of the film shooting Robert, and then Robert shooting Kishan Lal in exactly the same in the same context of why they're shooting each other. And the best part is they don't die because they pull open their shirts and they're not wearing bulletproof vests. They're wearing chainmail, which is wild. It's like, look, mithril. Like, what is happening? How are you? And the best part is, like, if you remember Kishan Lal's one, the line that he says beautifully is, It's basically trimmed only to his waistcoat, and his line afterwards is "तुम जैसे कायर लोग पीठ पे वार करते हैं सीने पे नहीं." Because it's onto the back of the waistcoat, and so he turns around and it's just a regular waistcoat. It's not a full chainmail thing that he's wearing. I just
Yeah.
that is genius. That is genius. And I think the nature of the flipping of the stories also, you know what is great also, like just the randomness with which how quickly Robert steals the gold. Which, oh, by the way, yes, guys, sorry. So Robert then, in a similar scenario, ends up running away from Kishan Lal, having stolen some of Kishan Lal's gold after having shot him. And then Robert sets
Yes.
himself back up as a villain again. And now these two villains apparently are clashing over who is going to kidnap Julie, the daughter of Robert, who is now the niece of Kishan Lal. And then there's a great scene for no reason Helen is involved, where Robert doesn't know what his daughter looks like, but he knows she's flying back on a flight, and he comes to kidnap her from Kishan Lal. But Kishan Lal apparently knows this is happening, and so there's a weird scene outside the airport where they put a gun to Kishan Lal, take who they think is his daughter away, and Kishan Lal just casually shuts the door and pulls out another bouquet of flowers and like, Julie, Julie, come here, my darling. And like, what is happening? And Helen is just there for that one scene. And then the scene afterwards where she's like threatening Robert's life. Why, I don't know. But yeah. The farcical nature of it is is farcical.
Yeah. The farcical nature of it is farcical is a good summary. One last thing I'll mention in this category is that fight scene between Vinod Khanna and Amitabh Bachchan. The climax of it happens, it's like literally a Looney Tunes cartoon because they
Fantastic.
go into this hut and the hut starts shaking like, like in the cartoons when characters are fighting inside a building. The roof starts coming up. You literally see chickens like flying out of the hut. There's like a cow that exits the hut. It's a cartoon fight sequence.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, not farcical, but I think just a culmination of a couple of the points, including Amitabh's being Amitabh. You know, and I didn't realize how iconic I thought that scene was till it came up, and right when it came up, I looked at my wife and I said, "This is going to be iconic." After uh, the fight scene after the song "My Name Is Anthony Gonzalez," where there's that
Yeah.
scene where Amitabh gets the crap kicked out of him, and then he's in front of a mirror talking to himself and applying medicine and bandages to the mirror. It is genuinely, I think one of the nicest scenes of the film, in my opinion.
Yes. So apparently, I read up that when Manmohan Desai saw that Amitabh doing that scene, he told him that I'm your fan for life now. Like
Yeah.
you may choose to like leave me, but I'll never leave you.
Oh wow. From offering chicken roll to every roll.
Yeah. Mm. Okay, so what is the last reason why you love this film?
Oh my god. Yeah, we've talked about a lot of the reasons. I think the last reason I love it is such a quintessential culmination of the 70s ensemble approach to a Bollywood film. Right? I mean, like just if I like you listed out the names right at the start, but like it also is a representation of a whole bunch, like for example Diwar, great ensemble cast. Sholay, great ensemble cast. Shan, great ensemble cast. Shatrughan Sinha, Shami Kapoor. Kabhi Kabhi, great ensemble cast. Chupke Chupke, great ensemble cast. Like that whole era had, I think, the beauty of the films was the ensemble. I don't think we have that anymore in Indian cinema as much, where I mean, Karan Johar does it to an extent back when he did like Kabhi Kushi Kabhi Gum, for example, where he brought all of the famous stars of that era onto one film. But like, I think in this film, what I loved is even the side characters are famous people. Like I said, like Helen just appears for like one sequence. Like it's a great approach to doing a film. Uh, Sometimes it means that great actors aren't used as much. Like I said, Shabana Azmi isn't used well in this film. Um, but it's what I loved about it is it's such a hodgepodge of different people and personas, all trying to achieve the same thing. Which to me, as someone that does enjoy being on stage, I think it would be my favorite way to approach something. Like I do enjoy it like a one-on-one serious kind of a role as well, but I think there's just more fun to be had when you get a whole bunch of people together to do something.
I think this ensemble approach is something that's Bollywood isn't doing anymore. I think very rare. I think you have like a Singham again or whatever that recent movie was, which is an exception where you had everybody in it. But again, they're not doing it well. Let's put it that way, right? So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but in the 70s, this was very much a staple of Hindi cinema. Interestingly, apparently, there were four movies directed by Manmohan Desai that actually released in 1977. This was one of them. The other three were Dharamveer, Parvarish, and Chacha Bhatija.
Hmm.
And the reason all four released in 1 year is because some film releases were delayed because of the emergency,
Yeah.
and there was a backlog. But Parvarish and Amar Akbar Anthony was apparently being shot at the same time in the same film studio in Raj Kapoor Studios.
Yeah.
So you talked about that mirror scene. Apparently, when Amitabh Bachchan was shooting the mirror scene in the same studio on a different set, the climax of Parvarish was being shot by the same director. And the cast of the movies is also fairly similar. You have Amitabh Bachchan, Vinod Khanna, I think Shabana Azmi and Neetu Singh also in the same
Yeah.
movie. So imagine how chaotic that must have been back then.
No, but also great, right?
Uh,
It's like you can jump from character to character just by moving to a different lot.
yeah, yeah. Also, I think since you mentioned this, the ensemble approach, I think the fact that maybe actors were willing to temporarily like put their egos on hold to let other people shine in the movie. And particularly, I'm thinking about that fight scene which we mentioned between Vinod Khanna and Amitabh Bachchan, where Vinod Khanna pretty much gets the better of him
Yeah, yeah.
decisively, right? I mean, there are moments where it's looks like a balanced fight, but Vinod Khanna pretty much looks like he's outdone Amitabh Bachchan,
Uh,
which is pretty. I mean, like it's not often that movie stars allow themselves to be seen that way, where they've been gotten the better of in a fight. So I feel like that was also a key ingredient that made it possible to have these multi-starers back in the
yeah.
day.
Yeah, I think they didn't charge as much, man. Like I don't think it broke the bank to have all of these people involved. Also, maybe I don't know. The ego is one thing. Also, I think it was a small knit community. Like at that point in time, if you look at the
Yes.
70s films, like you can literally name stars on one hand, like the male and the female, and inevitably there was going to be some intersection of these people on a blockbuster film. Of course, on the side you had your Devanands and the guys who were doing slightly different things, but it made watching a film enjoyable because you got to see the various it was almost like an alchemical kind of approach to filmmaking. It wasn't just here's a script. It was also about let's throw these kind of personalities at it and see what happens to it, which you can't really predict until
Yeah.
you have people in the room. So I thought that was like I find that approach interesting. And like you said, I think commercially it's become unviable to do those kind of things anymore. Not just in
Yeah.
Bollywood but in
Absolutely.
Hollywood as well. Like you can you imagine like if I don't know who are the biggest film stars like just got like apart from Avengers. Let's not even talk about that. But I'm just saying it's not possible to do a film like that. It would be very uh, not business friendly.
Uneconomical. Yes.
Yeah.
I think even Avengers kind of works because when they cast those people initially, they were relative unknowns, and then
Yeah.
they just locked them into multi-picture
Yeah.
contracts. Um, but yeah, I mean, that's why you love Amar Akbar Anthony.
Five reasons, yes. And the sub genres, which I would say is like the music, uh, is
Yeah,
fantastic. I think like I love that entire generation of music. Also, I think, yeah,
yeah, I love the songs in this film.
yeah.
Are you ready for our next segment, which is quiz time?
Yes, yes, I am. I am very scared,
Okay.
and I'm most likely going to say I don't know a lot.
Okay, great. So I feel like you'll get some of these. So once again, for our viewers and listeners, this is the part where we give our guest a little bit of a quiz, which is sometimes directly related to this movie, sometimes tangentially related to this movie. So I have 5 questions for you since you have 5 reasons why you like this film.
Great.
And what question one is a bit of a cheat because it has many subparts to it.
Okay.
Okay, so question one is actually many questions in one. Question
Sure.
2, 3, 4, and 5 are individual questions. Are you ready?
Okay. Yeah, let's go.
Okay, so question one is actually a mini round. It's an alliteration movie round.
Ah.
So you have to guess which movie I'm talking about, and all of the movies I'm talking about have alliterative titles, just like Amar Akbar Anthony.
Are these and they Bollywood, Hollywood?
Could be anything.
Okay, fine, fair enough. Okay,
Ready?
let's go.
First one, I'll starting off with an easy one, hopefully. After witnessing his parents' death, a billionaire learns the art of fighting to confront injustice. He must stop a secret society that intends to destroy his city.
It's a hard one.
Billionaire
Batman.
watching his parents die?
Batman Begins,
Yeah,
dude. It's Batman Begins. I was just playing. Yeah, Batman Begins with
yeah,
Christian
it
Bale.
is Batman Begins. Yeah, it is Batman Begins. Next one. After narrowly escaping a bizarre accident, a troubled teenager is plagued by visions of a man in a large rabbit suit.
Okay, huh? Donnie Darko.
Donnie Darko is correct. Uh,
I
Off to a
thought
great start.
I don't know if you have this as another alliteration, but narrowly avoiding that, my mind instantly went somewhere else till you said rabbit.
What's the other one it went to?
What's it? The fantasy one, Final Fantasy. No, what is it? That they made a trilogy of it now, where these teenagers narrowly avoid death and they all die in horrible circumstances.
Final Destination. Final
Final
Destination.
Destination. Oh, it's not Final Fantasy. Final
Uh,
Fantasy is the video
that's
game.
not a that's not an
My
alliteration.
bad. Yeah, my bad. My bad.
I think you're actually going to get all of the answers in this round. They're fairly easy. Let's see.
Okay, let's see.
Controversy surrounds high school basketball coach after he benches his entire team for breaking their academic contract with him.
Coach Carter.
Coach Carter is correct. Spending the summer at a resort with her family, a woman falls in love with the camp's dance instructor.
I will answer this with the line, "Nobody puts baby in the corner." Dirty Dancing.
Dirty Dancing is correct.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, these are pretty easy. I should have made this harder. Okay. Uh, the, the husband of a missing woman becomes the chief suspect in her disappearance.
An alliterative title. The husband of a... Oh, this is Gone Girl.
Gone Girl is correct.
Yeah.
Let's see if you get this one. A freshman is cajoled into joining the Bellas, which is her school's all-girls singing group, injecting some much-needed... Oh, damn, you're right. Pitch Perfect is correct. Last one. A mother and daughter do not get along. However, things take a turn. You already know this.
Freaky Friday.
Wow, okay, Freaky Friday is correct. Things take a turn when, in a freak incident, they switch bodies and are forced to live in each other's lives.
It's a
Okay,
classic.
well done. Like 100% score on question number one. Okay, question number two. A Sanskrit term meaning king among the confluences. That's what the term means.
Okay.
Is the name of an Indian city and someone associated with this film. What is the term or the
Prayagraj.
word?
Prayagraj.
Prayagraj is correct, yeah. So Prayagraj is the screenwriter of this movie.
Yeah.
And Prayagraj means king among the confluences, which means the confluences of the rivers Ganga, Jamuna, and a mythical river, which apparently also exists in what is formerly called Allahabad, is now called Prayagraj.
I was okay. We'll leave it at that.
See?
I know. I
We leave
won't.
it at that, okay.
Yeah.
Too early in the podcast for it to get cancelled.
Yeah. Pretty much. Yeah. Let's just keep it on the straight and narrow.
Yeah. Okay. I think you're gonna get all of these questions. Okay. I should have made it slightly harder for you, I think. But anyway, it's informative and fun. Okay, next question, third question. X was a musician born in the Goan village of Majorda, which by the way is not far from where I live in Goa, in 1927. As in, he was born in 1927, not that I live in Goa in
Yeah,
1927.
I figured. Yeah.
Okay. X went on to become a music composer, music arranger, and music teacher. He died in 2012. What connection does he have to this movie? I, you're not Googling, are you?
No,
Okay.
I had to shut the prompt that came up. 1927, Goen, born in Majorda.
Yes.
Connection, and he has some connection to this film.
Some connection to this film.
Music composer. I'm totally blank on this one. I have no idea.
His name is Anthony Gonzalez.
Are you serious?
Yeah. So apparently, Anthony Gonzalez was a real musician who was the violin teacher for Pyare Lal, who is part of Lakshmikant Pyare Lal, who composed the music for this film. So they just initially, I think this character was named Anthony Fernandez, but then because they had this teacher called Anthony Gonzalez, they changed it to Gonzalez to kind of pay tribute to him.
No, that's fantastic. I didn't know that. Oh, wow. Okay, that's interesting. So there was an actual person called Anthony Gonzalez.
Yes.
How did you find out
Okay,
about?
great. I mean,
Oh,
that's what I like doing.
research man. Okay, fair enough.
Research man. No, but this I remember this particular thing coming in the papers in 2012 in Goa when this person
Oh,
died. So I remember reading an article in the newspaper about Anthony Gonzalez, who inspired the song "My Name Is Anthony Gonzalez."
and this is why you should read newspapers, kids, so that you can have trivia for a random question almost 10 and a half years later.
Yeah, now that you mentioned that, this movie might not exist if not for newspapers, because apparently Manmohan Desai got the idea for this movie when he was reading a newspaper and he read an article about a drunk guy who left his three kids like at the foot of a statue. And that's when he came up with this idea, and then he kind of put a twist on it to say, what if there were three kids that were raised in three different religions? And then he gave the idea to the screenwriter and so on. But yeah, fourth question four, second last question.
Mm.
In 1878, British Prime Minister Benjamin Disraeli made a statement about his political rival William Gladstone, who would also become British PM or had been British PM. What connection does this have with this film again? In 1878, one British PM, Benjamin Disraeli, made a statement about another British PM, William Gladstone. How is that connected to this movie?
You know what's irritating me is I something tells me I know what this is. I just can't put my finger on it because I know both those names, and I know
Yeah.
that something was said. I know that they have a history of saying horrible things about each other. I just don't. Oh, okay. Give me 2 seconds.
Do you want a hint?
Not yet. Wait. Disraeli to Gladstone. Oh yeah, I'll take the hint. I have no clue.
The hint is it's very connected to the previous question or the answer of the previous question.
No man, I have no clue.
Okay. So, at the beginning of that song, My Name is Anthony Gonsalves, before the song begins, Amitabh Bachchan says this nonsensical
Discombobulation.
phrase.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what he says. He says, the whole country of the system is juxtaposition by the hemoglobin in the atmosphere because you are a sophisticated rhetorician intoxicated by the exuberance of your own verbosity. So he says that as like a nonsense phrase. But the second part of that phrase, which is where you're a sophisticated rhetorician intoxicated by the exuberance of your own verbosity, that part is what Benjamin Disraeli said about William Gladstone.
Ah.
Uh, Although very small, since we're both linguistic nerds, I would say,
Yeah.
they changed one very important word which changes the meaning of the whole sentence. Uh, he didn't say Benjamin Disraeli in real life didn't say sophisticated rhetorician. He said sophistic rhetorician, which is a completely different word. So
Ah,
sophistic means somebody that appears to make clever arguments, but actually the arguments are hollow. Sophisticated
sophistry.
obviously means the opposite.
Yeah.
Sophistry, yes. So Benjamin Disraeli said William Gladstone is a sophistic rhetorician, inebriated by the exuberance of his own verbosity. And they changed inebriated to intoxicated in this film, but they just took that second part. The first part is just pure nonsense about juxtaposition by the
Hemoglobin
hemoglobin in
is,
the
yeah.
atmosphere.
I,
But I
I,
love that. I love that bit before the song starts.
he says it about 3 times in the song. It's crazy because it
Yeah.
makes no sense.
Last question. Are you ready? It's a long one.
Yeah, you've already stumped me a number of times, Mr. Malia. I don't know if I'm going to get this last
I'm
one.
happy. I'm happy. I would be sad if you got 100% on my quiz. So
Yeah, but now
you're
I'm getting
currently
bad.
at
I should be at
50%.
50. Yeah, which is horrible.
Okay, so long question. So hear this one out.
Hmm.
This is about a 1980 video game called Adventure, released by Atari. At the time, Atari did not include programmers' names in the game credits. Now, a programmer named Warren Robinett disagreed with this lack of recognition for programmers, and he secretly programmed a message saying created by Warren Robinett, which would appear if a player hovered over a particular pixel during a particular part of the game. So it was a secret that a player could discover in the game if they did a particular thing at a particular time. And people eventually found this out. When Atari found out about this, the management initially thought they want to remove the message and re-release the game without that bit. But then they found that's going to be too costly and not worth the expense. So Steve Wright, who was a director at Atari, suggested that they keep this message in the game. And in fact, he encouraged the inclusion of such messages in future games, describing them as dash
Oh,
that
this is easy.
consumers could discover. So what is the dash?
I like that you have done 3 questions related to one character.
Yes.
Yeah,
And one
it's
song.
one song. Yeah, it's Easter egg. He referred to them as Easter
Yeah.
eggs.
So this is the origin of the phrase Easter egg in the context of secret things that you can find in media. So this is a little Easter egg for you about Easter eggs.
Yeah. Also, there is an actual Easter egg in the song. My name is Anthony Gonzalez.
Correct. Thank you. That is why this is connected to this movie and not just a random question. Because Amitabh Amitabh Bachchan, aka Anthony Gonzalez, emerges out of a giant Easter egg, which is an iconic way to emerge.
Yeah, no cakes for Mr. Bachchan.
No cakes, no cakes.
Yeah.
And okay, that about concludes it. Lastly, before we leave, do you have any recommendations for people? I think you mentioned a lot of movies already, but any
Yeah.
recommendations for people who enjoyed this movie?
Yeah, like I was saying, if you enjoy the whole multicultural aspect of it, I definitely recommend watching Naseeb, where, like I had said many times, Amitabh has the wonderful name of John Jani Janadhan, which is a representation of all 3 communities that he has chosen to belong to. Uh, if you like kind of insane fight sequences, um, or good fight sequences, I would definitely recommend Shan, in which Amitabh battles with an alligator. It's a classic. Um, really, really good in general film. And of course, if you like the idea of children who are separated at birth, Parent Trap, which is a classic. And I strongly recommend watching the Lindsay Lohan one because Dennis Quaid is really, really good at that. Along with I can't remember her name now, Natalie Wood. Liam Neeson's ex, his wife who passed away, is also fantastic in that film. And the supporting cast is
Yeah,
also excellent. I really loved the 1996 Parent Trap. It was, yeah, one of those films again that I saw growing up. But yeah, those are my film recommendations based off things that are there in Amar Akbar Anthony.
great. I will give you three very specific recommendations. So in Amar Akbar Anthony, there's a fight sequence in an under construction building. If you want to see another great Indian movie with a fight scene in an under construction building, watch Satya, which I think is one of the best Hindi movies made. It's not so much a fight as a chase sequence and like a a gunfight. But anyway, Satya's one recommendation. I think we forgot to mention in this, there's a ridiculous scene where is it Parveen Babi who's chased through like a field, and
Yeah,
then she
yeah.
comes up to a scarecrow, which the scarecrow ends up being Amitabh Bachchan, and why he would be in a random field dressed as a scarecrow is beyond anybody.
Bear in mind, right before this happens, he doesn't know she's being chased, but he sees her in
He
a
doesn't
car
know.
that is being chased and says, "Hey,
Yeah,
that's Julie." Akbar says, "No, that's not." I'm not going to get to the things that happen after that, but there's no going back to the fasting nature. There's no reason for him to be there.
yeah, but yeah, I think I got sidetracked. But if you want to watch another movie where a woman is chased, not chased, but a woman is going through fields and comes upon a scarecrow and interacts with the scarecrow, shall we say? Watch Pearl. It's a slasher movie starring Mia Goth. It's a good movie. And lastly, similar to what you said, if you want to watch a movie about people separated at birth, watch this movie called Three Identical Strangers, which is a crazy story. Um, that about concludes it for me. Thank you so much, Eamonn, for giving me your time. This was really fun. Hopefully that's salvaged in the edit. But in case you're listening to this and watching this, and there are some inexplicable cuts or jumps, just know that that's probably because we had some internet issues in the middle.
But thank you. I really enjoyed this, and thank you for making me choose a film like this. I think I sent you. I was very confused when you asked me to do this.
Yeah,
I didn't know if this was the right choice. Although the film does mean a lot to me, but I'm glad we chose this in the end. I think I really enjoyed looking at it again from a very different lens. So thank you. I greatly appreciate it. And of course, always
of
a
course.
pleasure having a conversation with you, Mr. Malia.
Likewise, Mr. Ennis, and maybe we'll do more episodes in the future with those other movies that you had on your list.
Inshallah.
And yeah, I think before we leave, I just again want to tell people who are listening to this that my long-term plan is to monetize this and hopefully make this a sustainable enterprise. So I just want to say, uh,
Do it. Do it.
होनी को shall I do it?
Do it. Do it. Do it.
Okay. होनी को अनहोनी कर दे, अनहोनी को होनी, एक जगह जब जमा हो तीनों, लाइक शेयर और सब्सक्राइब.
Well done.
You didn't see
Well
that
done.
coming, did you?
I saw the like, share, and subscribe. But then the minute you started the unhoney thing, I was like, this is an interesting way of doing it.
Okay, that's about it. And yeah, once again, like, leave your comments, suggestions, feedback in the comment section as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Malia. Take care. Ciao.